Arcane is without a doubt one of my favorite series of recent years. The second season is coming soon, and if you don't want to rewatch the entire first season, or maybe you'd like to but you don't have time, I thought I'd do a full recap. And if you like science fiction, I remind you can find my book Odyssey to Trappist-1 on Amazon in ebook and paperback, so check it out. So without further ado, let's get started. After a brutal battle on a bridge, young sisters Powder and Vi discovers the lifeless bodies of their parents in the rubble. Orphaned and traumatized, they were taken in by Vander, the former leader of the failed rebellion, who raises them as his own daughters. Years pass and Vi, now older and fiercely protective of Powder, leads a ride on a wealthy Piltover penthouse with her adoptive brothers, Milo and Clagger. During the robbery, Powder impulsively takes a collection of mysterious crystals, accidentally shattering one and setting off a devastating explosion that tears through the building. On their way back to the Undercity, the group is ambushed by Deckard and his gang. Vi and her brothers fend them off, but Powder, unable to keep up, is pursued and eventually loses the stolen loot. Vander, now a respected community figure in Zone, reprimands the group for their reckless actions. Determined to maintain the fragile peace with the Piltover authorities, he meets with Sheriff Grayson and her subordinate, Marcus, to smooth over the fallout from the incident. Later, when Milo disparagingly refers to Powder as a jinx, Vi steps to comfort her younger sister with a promise that things will get better. Meanwhile, in the dark recess of the Undercity, crime lord Silco interrogates Deckard about the failed ambush and experiments with the enigmatic scientist Singed on a new mutagen, the Shimmer. Together they inject the potent substance into a rat and test its volatile, transformative effects. An ominous hint of the forces that will soon upset the delicate balance between Piltover and Zone. Jace Tallis, a promising 24-year-old student at Piltover Academy and the inventor of the explosive crystals stolen by Vi and Powder's group, is summoned to appear before the Council, the city's government body, on charges of illegal arcane magical practices. Jace has believed in the power of magic since childhood, when a rune mage saved him from the accident that nearly killed him and his mother. Jace believes that magic, if integrated with Piltover's advanced science, could bring new resources and development to the city, already a symbol of scientific progress. However, the council deems his reach dangerous and decides to expel him from the academy and order the destruction of his studies. Just as his hope seems to be fading, Jace finds an unexpected ally in Victor, a young disabled assistant to the academy's rector, Professor Heimerdinger. Victor shares Jace's vision and offers to help him complete his work, rekindling Jace's desire to prove the value of magic. Meanwhile, back in Zone, Vander is under pressure from several fronts. On one hand, Piltover's agents demand that he turn over those responsible for the robbery, to prevent tensions between the two towns from escalating. On the other, some Zone residents are pushing to rebel against Piltover's oppression. Feeling guilty for dragging Zone into the conflict, Vi learns of the secret agreement between Vander and Sheriff Grayson and decides to take matter into her own hands. Willing to sacrifice herself, she summoned the Guardians of Piltover and prepares to turn herself in as the sole perpetrator of the robbery. A flashback reveals that Silco and Vander were once allies, united in the fight to free the underground city from Piltover's rule and transform it into the nation of Zone. However, their paths tragically parted when Vander, deciding to end the conflict, agrees with Piltover's guardians to end the battle, even going so far as to try to kill Silco, who instead was determined to continue the fight, no matter what. In the present, when Vi decides to surrender to the authorities in order to save Vander, the latter decides to sacrifice himself in her place, but is captured by Silco and Deckard, now transformed into a mutant creature thanks to the Shimmer. Vi, accompanied by Milo and Clagger, attempts to rescue Vander, leaving Powder safe. Meanwhile, back at Piltover, Jace and Victor secretly continue their experiments with the help of advisor Mel Medarda, and eventually succeeded in bringing the new magical technology, which they named X-Tech, to life, just as Heimerdinger breaks into the lab. Upon reaching Vander, Vi, Milo and Clegor are captured by Silco. Vi fights bravely and almost manages to defeat Silco's men, but with the group still in danger, Powder, in her desperate attempt to help, detonates one of the stolen crystals. The explosion is devastating. Milo and Clegor lose their lives, while Vander, badly injured, sacrifices himself to save Vi by injecting himself with the Shimmer to defeat Silco. He manages to get Vi to safety, but dies shortly thereafter from his injuries. Distraught and angry, Vi lashes her grief on Powder, accusing her of being a jinx and leaving her alone in the burning ruins of Silco's lair. Only later does she realize her mistake and try to return to her sister, but is stopped by the corrupt agent Marcus, who captures her on behalf of Silco. The latter, finding Powder in tears, recognizes in her the pain of abandonment and wraps her in an embrace that offers her a new sense of belonging. 7 years after the introduction of Hextech technology, Piltover is thriving and celebrating the 200th anniversary of Progress Day. To mark the occasion, Jace and Victor are ready to unveil their latest innovation, a finally stabilized Hextech gem. However, after a warning from Heimerdinger about the potential dangers of such technology, Jace decides to postpone the presentation out of an abundance of caution. Meanwhile, Powder has grown up and assumed the identity of Jinx, living with Silco, who treats her like a daughter. Now skilled and unpredictable, Jinx performs missions for Silco, including smuggling illegal materials, particularly Shimmer, between Zone and Piltover. During one of these missions, the operation is compromised by the intervention of the Fireflies, an underground resistance group in the city. Determined not to disappoint Silco and to prove her strength, Jinx infiltrates a Piltover facility and steals the Hextech gem that Jace had withheld from the public, detonating grenades and killing 6 agents in the process. After the attack, the Council assigned Jace a seat to protect the city from the growing threat of Zone's criminals, now armed with Hextech. Meanwhile, Caitlin Kiraman, a young and ambitious recruit to the Guardians of Piltover, as well as Jace's childhood friend and the daughter of a councilwoman, is suspended from active duty under pressure from her parents. She was actually involved in the attack, though unarmed. Determined to find out the truth, Caitlin begins a secret investigation and travels to Stillwater Prison, hoping to interrogate a member of Silco's gang to get information about Jinx. Instead, her search leads her to Vi, who she discovers has been incarcerated for years. Vi reveals to Caitlin that she recognized the symbol Jinx left at the site of their crimes. Using her connections and Jace's trust, Caitlin manages to get Vi released from prison, hoping that her knowledge of the underground city will be crucial in gathering evidence against Silco. Despite their different characters and backgrounds, an understanding quickly develops between Vi and Caitlin. The two go to an underground brothel to gather information, where Vi encounters Sevika, a lieutenant of Silco's. In the ensuing confrontation, Vi, distraught at the revelation of her sister's connection to Silco, becomes distracted and ends up seriously injured. Caitlin promptly intervenes, saving her life and helping her escape. Meanwhile, Marcus, who has become Piltover's new sheriff, is forced to cooperate with Silco, allowing Shimmer to be traded in exchange for his position. To divert attention from the real culprit of the recent attacks, he blamed the Firelights for the Day of Progress attack and the theft of the Hextech gem. Jinx, meanwhile, becomes engrossed in her experiments with the stolen gem and is caught in a small explosion that rekindled traumatic memories of her new family's death, for which she feels responsible. In a moment of vulnerability, Silco leads her into the poisonous water, where he nearly drowned years earlier because of Vander's betrayal. As he urges her to dive, Silco urges her to be reborn, urging her to abandon Powder's identity forever and embrace Jinx's. In Piltover, Jace realizes that his uncompromising integrity is isolating him politically, and agrees to ignore some of the questionable activities of other council members. At the same time, he begins a relationship with council member Mel Medarda, while Victor, terminally ill, desperately tries to discover just how far the potential of Hextech can go, pursuing a solution that is as scientific as it is personal. When Victor collapses in the labs, weakened by his illness, he and Jace resume studying the new Hextech rune, named Hexcore. They discover that the rune responds to organic matter and may even cure him, but the prospect terrifies Heimerdinger, who fear the possible destructive consequences. Determined to continue the quest, Jace obtains an unanimous vote from the council to remove Heimerdinger from the council, thus ridding himself of his opposition. Meanwhile, Victor enlists the help from Singed, a brilliant mutationist he knew from his childhood in the underground city, to perfect the Hexcore. Meanwhile, Silco discovered that Marcus has imprisoned Vi instead of eliminating her as ordered, and threatens to kill his daughter if he does not complete the task. Knowing that a conflict between Piltover and the underground city is imminent, Marcus, overwhelmed, begins preparation to protect the city. While hiding underground, Caitlyn tends to Vi and in a desperate exchange trades a rifle to a local healer for a potion to save her. When Vi recovers, Silco manages to track them down by bribing the locals with doses of shimmer. The two girls escape, causing the collapse of the hut they were hiding in, which turns to be Vi and Powder's childhood home. Just before leaving the underground, Vi spots a signal flare that her sister left for her as a symbol of a possible meeting, and runs to the source of the signal. Here she is finally reunited with Jinx, who, upon learning of her return, used the flare to lure her. The meeting between the sisters is brief and tragic. Jinx, tormented by paranoia and schizophrenia, accuses Vi of replacing her with Caitlyn and explodes in a fit of jealousy. Suddenly, the Fireflies appears on the scene, triggering a violent confrontation that culminates in the kidnapping of Caitlyn and Vi. Caitlyn and Vi are led to the Fireflies' base, where they discover that their leader is Echo, the boy who grew up with them in the slums, and now leads the group with great determination. Echo reveals to Vi how much he now considers Powder irredeemable, claiming that all that is left of her is Jinx. In fact, Echo and the Fireflies has been disrupting Silco's operation for years, trying to keep the shimmer and violence out of the underground city. Meanwhile, Jinx angrily confronts Silco for keeping Vi's return from her. Silco, however, manages to manipulate her again, implying that her sister has betrayed her by collaborating with the Piltoverians. Back in Piltover, Mel convinces Jace to take drastic measures by developing Hextech weapons to deal with the inevitable conflict. Meanwhile, Victor attempts to accelerate the transformation of his own diseased body by injecting himself with shimmer as suggested by Singed, and his bond with Jace continues to loosen. Determined to restore balance, Echo makes a deal with Caitlyn to return the stolen Hextech gem, and accompanies her and Vi to the bridge that separates Piltover from the underground city. Here, Vi painfully decides to leave Caitlyn and go back to find Jinx. However, Marcus, the corrupt sheriff of Piltover, intercepts them and tries to stop Caitlyn and Echo, intending to eliminate them. Vi, observing the scene, rushes to their defense. Jinx, watching from afar, becomes convinced that Vi has replaced her with Caitlyn. In a fit of madness and rage, she released a swarm of exploding robot insects on the bridge, killing Marcus and several guardians while injuring Caitlyn and Vi. Echo manages to save Caitlyn and challenges Jinx to a fight, allowing the two to escape to Piltover. During the fight, Echo overpowers Jinx, but is overcome by memories of their childhood together and hesitates to kill her, allowing her to trigger a grenade that severely injures them both. After the battle between Jinx and Echo, Silco rescues his adopted daughter, now unconscious and badly injured. Fearing he will lose her, he entrusts her to Dr. Singed, who warns him of the extreme risk of the treatment. The doses of shimmer needed to save her could also kill her. During the procedure, Jinx, who is in pain, imagines that it is Caitlyn and Vi who are causing it. The massive dose of shimmer alters her body, causing her iris to glow and ear purple. Meanwhile, in Piltover, Ambessa, Mel's mother, arrives in town to prepare her daughter for war against the Undercity, prompted by the murder of her eldest son. Meanwhile, Heimerdinger, expelled from the council, tries to help the slum dwellers, where he encounters Echo, who has survived but is badly wounded, and rescues him. Victor, also seeking a cure, receives new energy from the Hextech that allow him to walk, even run. But this power comes at an unexpected cost, the accidental death of his friend and assistant, Sky. When Caitlyn and Vi return to Piltover, they are granted a hearing with the council to denounce Silco. But the council is skeptical and ignore the danger. Disillusioned, Vi decided to distance herself from Caitlyn, bitterly declaring that their differences are irreconcilable as oil and water. She then goes to Jace and convinces him to join her in a secret raid to destroy Silco's Shimmer operations. Armed with X-Tech technology, Vi and Jace successfully confront a horde of mutagen-enhanced men. During the confrontation, however, Jace accidentally kills a child worker, an event that leaves him deeply troubled. Shaken by Vi's word, Caitlyn returns home and unwittingly falls into the hands of Jinx, who kidnap her, determined to take revenge. After the tragic raid on Silco's Shimmer factory, Jace realizes the dramatic human cost of a war between Piltover and the emerging nation of Zone. Determined to find a peaceful solution, he proposes a deal to Silco. He will grant him sovereign and amnesty for Zone in exchange for shutting down the Shimmer production, returning the stolen X-Tech gem, and turning in Jinx to face justice for her crimes. Meanwhile, Echo welcomes Heimerdinger to the Firefly's base, where the two begins working together to improve life in the underground city. In a heartbreaking moment of reflection in front of Vander's statue, Silco is torn between his dream of seeing Zone free and his affection for Jinx, which he would have to give up to fulfill. Unaware of her presence, in fact Jinx is eavesdropping his words. Meanwhile, Vi, armed with the X-Tech gloves Jace built, confronts and defeats Sevika, but is then overpowered by Jinx, who imprisons her in an abandoned tea house. When she awakens, Vi finds herself chained in front of Silco and Caitlyn, surrounded by creepy puppets representing Vander, Milo and Claggor, while Jinx watches the scene in emotional chaos. Desperate, Jinx hands Vi a gun and asks her to kill Caitlyn to prove her love, promising that she will return to the old powder in return. However, Vi's affection for Caitlyn makes such a choice impossible. Jinx then threatens to kill Caitlyn herself, allowing Silco to speak in the meantime. Silco and Vi tries to appeal to the divided souls of Jinx and Powder, while Caitlyn, having managed to free herself, points her gun at Jinx, suggesting that she should surrender. Empowered by the Shimmer, Jinx knocks out Caitlyn and prepares to kill her, ignoring Vi's pleas to stop. In a desperate attempt to protect Jinx, Silco breaks free and tries to shoot Vi, but in the confusion and to protect Vi, Jinx hits and kills Silco himself. In his final moments, Silco reveals to her that he would never betray her trust, reminding her how much he loved her and considered her perfect. Now determined to embrace her identity as Jinx, knowing that she and Vi are destined to part, she walks away, leaving her with Caitlyn. In a final act of defiance, Jinx loads her X-Tech gem into a rocket launcher and, as the council votes for Zone independence, fire it on the council headquarters. And that was it. Now you are ready to watch the second season, which will be released very soon. I am looking forward to it. And if you want more content about Arcane, please subscribe to the channel. There are so many interesting things to say. As always, I thank my Patreon and wish you a good reading, good writing and good watching of Arcane.